Good evening, everyone. This is Debbie Henderson from Debbie's Designs. I am on day 3 of my live workshop. We've got one more night to go. I need to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get started, and I'm probably going to announce this again at the end in case somebody didn't make it right at the beginning. I need to change the time for tomorrow night's class. I double booked myself, and I don't think I'm going to be done a local class in time for 8 o'clock. So I'm going to change the time to 9 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night, which is probably better for some of you guys anyway. So 9 p.m. tomorrow night. A reminder that I won't be answering any questions until I'm done with my demonstration tonight. My iPad will be here tomorrow, and I'm hoping I'll be better able to interact with you next time. I also wanted to announce the door prize winner for last night was Monica Talbot. I left a message on the events page. She will be able to pick one of these 3 stamp sets from Sale-A-Bration. Amazing You, Lots of Lavender, and Beautiful Peacock. So Monica, if you are here with me tonight, private message me your choice and your address. And I wanted to show you something exciting. I got this in the mail yesterday from Stamping Up. It's my Alaska pin. I earned the 2018 incentive trip that Dave and I will be taking in July. And this is my pin. Isn't that exciting? And I know there's going to be more stuff coming in the mail, so I'll show that to you as it comes over to me. Lastly, I'm just reminding you, anybody that places an online order until the 17th, I will be mailing a set of 4 cards for placing an order, plus my monthly thank you card, which is this one here that flips open this way. So that's 5 cards that you'll be receiving if you place an order using the hostess code that I posted for this workshop only. Other than that, I think I've done everything I need to do, so we'll get going on the first project. Here's the sheet with all the dimensions, like I've done every night so far. This is the card we're going to be making. All 3 cards tonight are using the Blooming Basket bundle from the second release. Don't forget that these items, some of them that I've been showing you, are available tomorrow, which would be midnight Mountain Time. So if you're a night owl and you stay up, this one here comes as a bundle. And this is the first time I've seen Stamping Up do a bundle for Sale-A-Bration. But you get the Blooming Basket stamp set and the Blooming Basket embossing folder. And that's what I'm using on all 3 cards tonight. I'm going to show you 3 different ways to use the embossing folder. So as you can see on this card, I did the white background. That's just the regular embossing. I'm going to start with that, and then I'll show you a couple tips and techniques. So for cardstock, we're using Soft Sky 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. The Bubbles and Fizz designer paper, which is another pack of paper you can earn for free during Sale-A-Bration, and that's 5 1/4 by 4. Whisper White 4 3/4 by 3.5. A scrap piece of white for the stamping. And the inside layer is 5 1/4 by 4 with a little strip of designer paper, 5 1/4 by 3/4 of an inch. I'll show you what I did on the inside. Okay. And then we need rhinestone jewels. The in color bitty bows. So I'm going to pick one of these colors. I used the Berry Burst on this card, and we'll pick a different color to see what we can come up with tonight. For inks, we're using Bermuda Bay and Soft Sky, a blender pen, and then 2 daubers to go with these inks. So let's get started with the stamping. I hope you guys have been having as much fun as I have with these workshops. I've been getting a lot of positive comments. And I know there was a lot of confusion because I did set this up as an event and found out later that I could not post videos to the event page. So I'm going to do this a little different next time. I'm going to do it as a group page. I'm going to glue the designer paper in place. And next I'm going to bring in my Big Shot. Now this embossing folder is one of the thicker ones, and you only need one clear plate when you do the embossing. I'm going to put this in there centered. Make sure it's nice and straight so your lines are straight. I'm going to put that on top of the platform. And crank it through. And then this is what it looks like. Isn't that pretty? And you could even use the back side. It's got little squares that are on the debossed side. But we're going to use the basket weave for tonight. For this card anyway. And again, I usually use the multi-purpose glue when I have embossed areas. Okay, now we're going to ink the large basket. And I'm using the Bermuda Bay. I'm going to cut this out so it doesn't matter where I place it. Now the technique I'm using to color this, I'm not using any ink. This is called coloring with the lines, because as you apply wet to the inked lines, it's going to spread the color for you. See how quick that is? This ink stays wet long enough that you can spread it this way. And all I'm coloring is the basket. I'm not going to color anything else. Now I'm going to show you a little trick. I'm going to hand cut this basket. I'm not going to have you watch the whole thing, but I brought in a 3/4 inch punch. I'm going to go as close to the handle as I can. It's hard to start on the inside when you want to cut this by hand. So what I did is I brought the punch in, punched a hole, and it gives me a starting point to go ahead and cut all around that. And because I didn't want you to watch me do the whole thing, I did already do one ahead of time. You're probably saying, phew, I don't have to watch her do that all night. I'm going to glue this in place with Stamping Dimensionals. I didn't add any height for the handle because I'm going to actually add just a little dab of glue. I want this flat so that my little bow will stick to the background and the basket. Now, we used Berry Burst on this one. I'm just going to dig in here and just pick any color because I think any of these colors go well. These are self-adhesive. And remember last night we created a monochromatic card. So this is a monochromatic card with a splash of color. Now the next thing I'm going to bring in is the Celebrate You dies, which you've seen me use in the past couple nights. We're going to use the word celebrate. That's where the sponges come in. I'm going to do a little bit of an ombre effect using my sponges. This is a white cardstock. and it colors very nicely with the sponge daubers. I'm going to go a little bit lighter in this area because now I'm going to add the second color, which is the soft sky. And I want, where they meet, the two colors meet, I want to blend those a little bit. So that's why I opted to go a little bit lighter. See how nice that is? Very simple to sponge. So you could use any color you wanted on that. Now my next step, because my basket is raised, this has to be raised also. But part of this is going to be glued onto the basket, so we just need to raise this part of it. And this is where, let me see if I can get my mini dimensionals. There's a big space here of foam, and that's what I'm using to get a little skinny strip on the end. And I just need two. I'm going to add one to the letter T and another one to the letter A. Whoops, I don't think I peeled it. There we go. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the other end. And then we're going to place this over the basket partially. And then the last step for the front is to add a few stamping, I almost call them stamping dimensionals, rhinestone jewels. I can see that I lost one on this card. I had one right here. And now we're going to do the inside. And I'm just going to place the designer paper and just leave a little bit of white showing on the bottom. And then we have a bunch of words that we need to stamp. Now I forgot to show you, this is from the Amazing You stamp set that I used last night. So I'm combining a lot of the sentiments here. So celebrate, amazing, and you. And then we're just going to add a few butterflies in the background. And that's it for the inside. Isn't that neat? So you can intermingle these words to make up different phrases. I hope you guys are going to try some of these cards that I've shown you in the past 3 nights, and I would love to see pictures of them when you're done. Okay, so that's my first card for tonight. Very simple. Let me get set up for my second card. Lots of layers on this one. Now I've already gone ahead and cut out my squares. These are with the Stitch Shapes framelits dies. These are the 2 squares, the 2 largest size. One with Peekaboo Peach, the other one with Whisper White. So those are all cut. Now the card that we are creating, this is a gatefold card, which opens this way. So this is only glued to half of the card. So let me move the measurements so you can see them. So this is Peekaboo Peach, 8.5 by 5.5. And what I did is I scored 2 1/8 right here, and then I flipped over and scored again at 2 1/8. So 2 1/8 on each end. 2 pieces of Whisper White, 5 1/4 by 1 7/8. 2 pieces of Wisteria Wonder, 5 inches by 1 5/8. And then we have our 2 squares. And the inside, again, is 5 1/4 by 4. So let me fold both of these flaps over. I love making cards with different card folds. To me, they're just a little bit more interesting. Now let's glue the 2 white pieces. And then I'm going to show you how to stamp with the embossing folder. So we have 2 pieces of white, 1 on each flap. The ink that I'm using on this card is the Wisteria Wonder. Now I'm not using the embossing folder to emboss on this card. As you can see, there's little dots in the background. I'm actually using the folder as a stamp. So the side with the logo is the side with all the little square bumps that you saw on my card. Wait a minute. I'm going to make sure. Yes. So it's the side with the logo. And all I'm going to do is pounce. Okay, and you can see how that inked all the little squares. I'm going to carefully place these without shifting. Close the top. Oh, I moved it. Let me do that again. Remember, there's always 2 sides to your cardstock. And then all you're going to do is rub. And this now becomes a stamp. Pretty neat, huh? I'm going to use my chamois cloth that I showed you on day 1, because we need to use this again on card number 3. Now I want to make sure it's dry by then. So now we're going to glue these in place. So you can do this with any embossing folder. You just need to find the side that has the bumps, which is normally the side with the Stampin' Up! Logo on it. Okay, now we're going to glue this, and as I said, you need to make sure that it's glued on one side only so that the flaps aren't stuck together. So I'm going to add adhesive only to half. Okay, and there's where the 2 flaps are going to open. Now we're going to do the sentiment. And I'm actually gluing this piece diagonally. And we're going to add a little butterfly. And then I'm going to show you trick number 2. See how I stamped the flower on the corner? There's a handle right here. So what I did is inked my stamp. And then I brought in some masking tape. You could use painter's tape also. I'm going to cover the handle. And that's going to prevent the handle from being, the image being inked on the cardstock. So now I'm going to place this right here and just press with my fingers. And there you go. So that's a tip. That's a selective stamped image. And again, we're going to use the marker, the blender pen, to just grab some of the ink. And this one's going to be glued in place with stamping dimensionals. You know how sometimes you have 2 or 3 words on one sentiment, and if you need just one word, you can cover the other 2 like I just did. And that goes right there. Now let's add a little bit of bling. I've got one in each corner. And a little tiny one in the center of the butterfly. Now you'll notice on here I have a double bow. My husband Dave actually creates a bow maker that you can order from my blog. It's really neat and easy to make bows. I'm going to wrap that around twice. And he has more than just this tool. We've got washi tape holders, glue gun holders, heat gun holders. Let's see how cute and how quick I can pull these apart. See how nice that makes a bow and how easy that was. Okay, now we're going to glue that in place. I'm going to use one glue dot, and I'm also going to add a little bit of liquid glue. And then we just need to trim the tails. And now let's do the inside, and all I did was the basket, the sentiment, and the butterfly. And I did stamp the butterfly ahead of time, again, so you didn't have to watch me do that whole cutting thing. I swapped the sentiments around this time too. This one had the "You Are Loved" on the outside, "Here for You." And this time I went "Here for You, You Are Loved." I always tell my customers when they come over to stamp with me, it's your card. You can do it the way you want. So sometimes they choose to change things up. So we're almost done card number 2 already. When I set up this event, I thought for sure I would be about an hour and a half, but I've been more like 45 minutes to create 3 cards. Of course, everything's cut up for me too, so it makes it easy. Okay, so that's card number 2, the gatefold card. Let me set up for card number 3. I know you're going to like this one. Okay, here's my measurements. Chocolate chip, 11 by 4 1/4, scored at 5 1/2. Got a lot of pieces here. Daffodil Delight, 5 1/4 by 4. Sahara Sand, 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. A piece of Whisper White scrap for stamping. The inside is 5 1/4 by 4. Let's see, I have a couple more pieces here. A scrap piece of Daffodil Delight for stamping, and another piece of the Bubbles and Fizz designer paper, 3.5 by 1.5. I have a little bow made with the linen thread. The Lots of Labels dies, and this is the largest one, and I'm going to show you a trick with that. Chocolate chip ink. The classic label punch, and I have to find my sentiment. Okay, the sentiment I'm using tonight for this card is from the Beautiful Peacock. Today is all about you. And the Happy Birthday from Eclectic Expressions that we used on night number 1. And of course the basket. Now let me clean that off. And what else? I think that's it. Okay, so let's get started. I wish you could see my counter when I'm doing 3 projects. There is stuff laying everywhere because I just kind of push everything aside. And I don't like clutter, so I would never show you what it looks like. No way. I'm going to glue the Daffodil Delight layer. Okay, now I need to move this all aside because I need to bring the big shot in again. And again, we're using the embossing folder first with 1 clear plate. Now, what I'm going to do with this is take the chocolate chip ink, and I'm going to ink the same side that we did for card number 2. I'm going to press a little harder this time because I want to try to get some of the lines. Okay, so you can see that's all inked. So this time, instead of using it as a stamp, we're actually going to emboss with ink. And you're going to see how pretty it is. Now, the only ink I would not do this with, only because I did this before, is the basic black because it does stain. The other inks are classic inks, and you can just run that under the faucet. Now look how pretty that is. Let me move the big shot so you can see it against the white. And even though you have some splotches here, it just makes it look more like a basket. Okay, so let me glue that in place. So this would be, the other one you stamped with the embossing folder, and this one is embossing with ink. But you can see how that really stands out. Okay, now I'm going to glue the designer paper. I'm going to center that. Okay, now we're going to do some stamping. So I need the sentiment with the classic label punch, and you'll see that this just fits. It fits perfectly in here. I have to make sure that the G or the Y from the today is not going to be chopped off. So that's the sentiment. And then we need 2 of the little tag. And I'm going to hand cut that, but it's quick because it's only 4 sides. I don't need the string, so I'm not going to worry about that. So there's 1. And 2. Okay, so we got those pieces. Now we're going to do the basket. And this time I'm not coloring it. It's going to stay as a lined image. I like the way that looks. It's okay not to color an image sometimes. Okay, now I need to bring the big shot in so I can show you a little tip. And this time we're going to use the magnetic plate with the lots of labels die. And I'm going to position this so it's as high as I can, but close to the basket. Make sure the sides are centered. Some of the foliage is going to be cut off, but that's no big deal. Now, this is the little trick I want to show you. I didn't want a layer this large covering my basket weave. I wanted a smaller layer. So what I did is once the top was cut, and you have to make sure that the cardstock is inside the cut, bring this as high as you can, evenly spaced around the basket, and we're going to cut that again. So you can see where I chopped off the bottom. So I made this smaller. I made it the size that I wanted for my card. Isn't that neat? Okay, now we're going to glue this in place with Stamping Dimensionals. I go through a lot of dimensionals. I'm not cheap about using them. Like here, I could have not put one in the middle, but I'm afraid that the middle will cave in. That's just me. I have customers that actually cut these in half before the mini dimensionals came out. Okay, so that goes there. Now we need to glue the two tags. And I did overlap them. And the little bow. Something this tiny, what I usually do is take the glue dot, whoops, and I roll it so it's really skinny. It rolls against itself. So you just have a little tiny piece there, and it won't show. Now let's bring the mini dimensionals in. I had a lot of you say you need to get these when I showed them to you on the first night. These are awesome. And that goes right here. And then on the inside, I just stamped, whoops, I stamped a partial basket, which is okay. You don't need the whole image. 2 butterflies. And the happy birthday. I like going off the page sometimes with my images like that. It looks pretty neat. And that's card number 3. So again, we've got this card with the inked embossing folder and embossing with the ink. The inked embossing folder used as a stamp, and then the embossing folder used the way it should be without any without changing anything. So those are my 3 cards for tonight. So just a reminder, in case you guys tuned in late, I have a class tomorrow night that I forget about, and I need to change the time to my live class to 9 p.m. Eastern time instead of 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's going to be late for some, but not for others. So right now, I'm going to end this class. And for those of you that are following the workshop on the events page, you need to go to the events page. For those of you that don't know how to get there, look on the left-hand side of my page that you're on right now. Click on events, and you should see the live workshop link. So see you tomorrow night, and thanks for coming.